create the housing, whether it's an accessory dwelling unit or for the individual to get the voucher or to get a unit in state housing. Because that's the key to unleashing additional hours of support from DDS. It's also the key to unleashing the higher Social Security amount and potentially, you know, and of course the value of the housing getting covered. Yes.
A quick question. You have a ton of information, sort of mind-boggling. And for families, do you sit with families one-on-one and help them figure out their own situation?
So can I share my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. It's disabled right now. So whoever the host is just needs to click the toggle it over so I can share.
Well,
I think if you just click on the little arrow next to share screen so that it says allow, yeah, there you go, you got it. So this is our website, and it's set up as a no wrong door option. And so the basic idea is that you could either go in a very traditional manner, just follow the bouncing ball across the menu the way you would any old website. The other way in is through the roadmap, which is actually interactive. So you can click on things and it will take you to pages to explain it. And as you dive into the roadmap, it will eventually take you to all the same places you would get to if you just went one step at a time through the menu. And the third way we encourage people to go in is through this thing called Housing Boot Camp. And Housing Boot Camp is simply a conceptual way of thinking about, please go down this drop-down menu. These are the things that we offer to families in the least complex to most complex order, and also running from free down through paid. And so getting on the road to housing is a very short 15-minute, 30,000-foot overview presentation that takes people through the roadmap and also shares this thing I call the sandwich. And then we go to the turning 18 checklist, which is exactly what it says. What do you need to do when your kid is turning 18, with a bunch of links on how to do it? So it'll take you through getting on housing voucher waiting list. It will take you through doing a referral to DDS for adult services, registering your son for the draft, which you have to do. It will take people through a whole bunch of things. Housing in a month's worth of tweets is exactly what it sounds like. It is 31 bite-sized little things to know about housing. And then there's our basic introductory webinar, which is a 2-hour webinar, a follow-up webinar, which is all about getting on waiting lists and only about getting on waiting lists. And that's all free. And then preparing your family member, some of that's free, some of it's paid. We've got free downloadable workbooks at the 8th grade, 1st grade, and picture level. We also have an option to do person-centered planning, which we charge for. And then housing counseling can either be individual consultation or application assistance. And depending on how people sign up for it, it can be free or they can be paying for it. So you remember I mentioned we have institutional members, and they pay us a flat fee for the year, and they get from us the thinking about housing webinar and the applying for housing webinar, and then they get 14 individual appointments to allocate as they see fit.
Okay.
And then finally, learning about housing is the deep dive. This is fee for service. It is a 12 to 15 hour, depending on the audience, 5-part Zoom series that we do on alternate Saturday mornings across 5 weeks. That is the deep dive.
So you never work with families independently. You're always in a group situation.
Oh, no. The housing counseling is always independent.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It is always independent.
I must have.
They sign up through the institutional members. So we give 14 appointments, say, to the Northeast ARC, and they send me something that says you're going to be meeting with John Smith at 3:00, and I send John Smith a Zoom link.
Mm-hmm.
And John Smith is usually a parent, is sometimes two parents, is occasionally an individual, and occasionally, the parents and the kid.
Okay. All right.
And that can be, those sessions look like, so I had 3 of those sessions on Tuesday, and one was, we are having a major health crisis, and, and while DDS is telling us our kid is approved for a group home, they have been stalling for a year and we don't know what to do. That's on one extreme. Somebody else is, our kid just turned 18 and we're trying to figure out what the lay of the land is.
Yeah.
And somebody else is somewhere in between there, right? So and I've so that is through institutional member. Tomorrow I've got a 2-hour session which is being paid for through the Department of Developmental Services to work with somebody from a service agency, the mom and the individual, because they need housing, and they're not even sure altogether what waiting list they're on, or how to update them, or what they need to do to jumpstart the process. It is very common to see a situation where somebody got on a waiting list and didn't know they were supposed to update it regularly, or they could be thrown off the list.
Yeah.
It is very common for some social worker at some point helped the kid get on the list, but mom doesn't know what they got on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So part of this, I just want to come over here and say the applying thing is connected strongly to this other website that we also run, which is called 18 Section 8. And if our main website is about, the soup to nuts, combining program services, et cetera, to create housing, this one is just about filling out applications, staying on the list, and what to do when you get to the top of it. And it is very hands-on. So if you come up here to the document library, you can see we have a grid that we use to walk people through all the types of housing available for people with disabilities in Massachusetts. It's color-coded, and there are links to get started, but it all coordinates with the whole site. So you can see that Section 8 portable corresponds to gold on the PowerPoint. The Common Housing Application for Massachusetts Programs corresponds to blue. Everything else corresponds to the purple. We've got sample completed applications. And then we also walk people through, and I mean on a very granular level, we're not just giving people a copy of a completed application. We're talking about, so let's take a look at this. This is, what does the website look like? Click the create account button, create your user login, so it is step by step. And so, and then once you are logged on, then you can just follow the directions from the paper version, because it's really the same thing. And so we have a hypothetical person. We've got Rafael Martinez is helping his daughter Anita. Rafael's her legal guardian. She's 22. She lives at home with her family. She's interested in applying for these things. And so that's how we filled out, our imaginary applicant, our imaginary people filling this out.
Right.
In the case of one of the other applications, it's an individual who's nonverbal, who's in a residential school. His mother's got guardianship. He's, how does that Section 8, portable Section 8 application play out? Because, the individual could use a portable Section 8 application even if he's in a state licensed group home.
Yeah.
So it is walking people through it. How do you stay on the list is here. What happens when you get to the top of the list? How long do you have to find a place to live. It's only 60 to 65% of people who receive a Section 8 voucher are able to utilize it before it times out and they lose it.
Right.
Right? So how do you make sure you're not in that unfortunate 30 to 35%? How do you calculate the value of the voucher? How can you have a roommate, etc.?
Yep.
What about live-in aids? What about group homes? We've already got a Section 8 voucher. Can we give it to our family? All of those things. So what we find is with this website, the world divides into three groups of people. People who can find their way through the process using this website on their own once they know it's there and what's on it. And that's most people. The other two groups are people, one group is people who really just can't find their way through this and really need somebody to hold their hand to do it. And that would be like this family I'm meeting with tomorrow morning. And the third group is the people who are like, yeah, I could do this, but I really don't want to be bothered. I will just pay Kathy to do it for us. And so I'll set up a series of Zoom meetings with them and we will do it together and I will walk them through it. And whether it's like the family tomorrow or the person who is paying fee for service, what they're walking out with is a spreadsheet that, sorry, that was the wrong one, is a spreadsheet that is telling them, this is the title of the application, this is the type of application, what website did I use or where did I send it, what date did I apply, when did I update it or change an address or have any contact with the housing authority about this application. And we tell people, you print this out, you paper clip it to the inside front cover of a folder, you keep copies of all your applications and all your correspondence in that folder, and you should have your housing search at your fingertips. Update everything at least once a year. Section 8 centralized waiting list, you have to update every 90 days. Put a reminder in your phone.
Catherine, can I ask you, this is Lois, can I ask you, do you mind, what's your fee to a family for walking them through this?
For applications, it's $75 an hour.
Okay. And how many hours does it generally take you to do this?
It depends. If people want to do the bare minimum, I can get them on 2 Section 8 lists and the common housing application for Massachusetts programs in 2 hours. Done and dusted. Very easy. That is, mom and dad are sitting there and that's all they're going to apply for.
Yeah.
The second we add anything else, it adds a lot more time. And the reason for that is the three things I just referred to in Massachusetts are all pre-applications. So they are short. They are just to get you on the list because people have had a lightning strike of common sense and realized they really don't need to know your bank account numbers and what the balances are right now for something that you're not going to get to the top of the list of for 7 years. Right? But some people have not had a stroke of common sense. And so if we go back to this thing here and we look at something like a federal Section 8 application, I guarantee you that thing is at least 25 pages long. So if we say you want to do 2 or 3 additional applications beyond the Section 8 and the CHAMP, that's going to be another 4 hours minimum, possibly 6 hours. And that's if mom and dad are on the ball and they bring the correct information with them to the meeting. If I'm working with an individual who doesn't have effective family involvement and it's like pulling teeth, to get this whole thing done can be 12 hours.
Yeah, I believe it.
Particularly when I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't have effective family involvement and they have a history of homelessness, it can take a couple of hours just to put together the 5-year housing history that all applications are going to require when they're full applications. Because we're going through, all right, what was the address? Do you remember the name of the landlord? Okay, it was Joe. That's all you know. All right, but you got the address. We're going to go into the registry of deeds now and find the deed on the property. Does this name look familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why families can't do this by themselves.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Individuals.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Individual, absolutely. And
Right.
when they're individual without a family.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they're the ones who need the help the most. And that's the group we're trying to see if we can get a contract through DDS.
Yeah.
To be able to, because it's not like their service coordinator has the time to do it.
No. That's what I was going to ask you, if you've approached the state at all about funding.
Well, that's what we're trying to work through, right? We have become a vendor through the procurement process. What's hanging fire right now is we are waiting for the state autism task force to get an agreement from the DDS commissioner to say this is something that they want to put out an RFR on.
Mm.
So that's
I noticed that Alice Forster, just one quickly, Alice Forster has her hand raised, as does Mike Olson. So maybe we should check in quickly with those people. Alice? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Catherine, that really impressive. I was just wondering, for those of us in Connecticut, the 211 CAN line, right, is for folks who are unhoused or youth, and it doesn't have, half of what you have on your website. But just thinking about 211 as a pathway into this. Now, Jennifer or other folks might, say, okay, well then, I guess, Mike, you have the case management services, right? But there is something in Connecticut. It's not related to DDS or autism, but it is housing assistance. But yours is extraordinary and great job.
I just want to make a comment about 211 because, unfortunately, not long ago, somebody put something about my organization on 211 in Massachusetts that was a little misleading. And so suddenly I was being barraged with homeless parents who have a 5-year-old with autism. And that's not anybody I'm in a position to help beyond saying you need to check out the shelter system, right? But what Massachusetts does have is they've got 8 housing consumer education centers. And in theory, they are supposed to be the people who help people on things like applications. The problem is they don't understand the population.
Exactly.
Right. And so what I've dealt with people, an individual who is got a fair number of skills, but no effective family involvement. And they go to the Housing Consumer Education Center. The Housing Consumer Education Center says, bring me back your last 6 consecutive bank statements. And it doesn't work. And I can tell you up front, telling them to bring me your last 6 consecutive bank statements isn't going to work.
Exactly.
But, the HCEC doesn't know what to do with that.
Now you need people that really know autism to do this.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry.
I wanted to give Mike a chance too. He's had his hand up for a while. I'm sorry to be rude.
Thank you, first off, for everything you've presented. The fact that you have a centralized Section 8 wait list is huge. You said DDS doesn't provide housing for individuals without ID. So what options do you have for an individual that doesn't have ID but can't live on their own?
So primarily it's a question of, unless you've got something like DDS as a pilot project, there are a couple of things that exist. There are some human services agencies that have, monitor departments. But if you're talking about somebody who really can't live on your own, it's really adult foster care. And we, this is kind of the royal we, I strongly encourage people to look at finding a way to combine a housing voucher with adult foster care. Precisely because there's so much turnover in the caregiver population. If the individual doesn't have some way of controlling the housing with the voucher, the risk is they're going to be moving every 1 to 2 years. And this is the case as well with DDS shared living. The average duration of a shared living placement in Massachusetts is 3 years. And so it's not uncommon for people to have to move every 1 to 2 years. But
for our population, that's really tough.
It's really tough. And so this again goes back to I really want to hammer accessory dwelling units hard because so I'm thinking of an individual where the family put on a 2-bedroom accessory dwelling unit on the back of the house. And their son lives there with an adult foster care provider and I think like 35 hours a week of wraparound services from DDS.
That's a lot of services.
It's a lot. But, when the caregiver leaves, the individual does not have to leave.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to stop this because this is incredibly important and it's been incredibly helpful to all of us. But I know that we had asked Judy Dowd to come in just to give us a little bit of background about what's going on at the state level. And we've only got 4 minutes left of what our meeting time was scheduled. So I'm hoping that maybe Judy, you can just give us a short little blurb on that since we asked you to come here and you've been so kind as to come. And Kathy, it's incredible. Thank you very much for everything you shared with us.
Really,
Yeah.
what you do.
Really amazing. I don't think you've heard The Last of Us.
Okay.
No. We're going to hound you now.
Yeah, I don't want to, Judith, I don't want to steal your time. I just want to leave one bug in your ear. A lot of people don't know local housing authorities have the right to create a disability preference for Section 8 vouchers. And a lot of the housing authorities don't know it either.
Okay.
So,
Thank you
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you so
very much.
Hi,
Yes.
Judy. I know how busy you are, Judy. So
No, that's fine. I apologize for being late. I would have liked to hear. And I actually do have some questions that I hope we talk about next time. But I did want to say that, that we are putting together a pilot for supportive housing. And it's going to be 15 units. We have 15 wraps from DOH. And we're working with a provider that provides residential services to individuals with autism. Has not done supportive housing because there hasn't been any for autism, but we're not ready to say who it is, but they're very good. And we just need to iron out some of the details. And there's lots more, after we get the provider in place, like how do you do it, who gets access, all that stuff, because the difference with a lot of the other supportive housing that we provide is that the autism waiver does not provide any residential supports. So what will happen is it's called a wrap and a wraparound. And I know that many people have heard about this, and it's very common with other populations. But we have the wraps, the RAPs. We're going to fund the WRAPs through that tobacco money that never got spent on autism.
Right.
So we're hopeful that because it's like $10,000 a year per per person as the match. It will last a while.
Yeah.
And, we're hopeful that we can look at it and say, it's successful for this population